The church smelled of old wood, melted wax, and fear. The kind of fear that seeps into the walls and never quite leaves. And as the snowstorm screamed outside like it wanted in on the cruelty, she knelt there, bare knees pressed into splintered planks, wrists tied tight behind her back, fingers numb, not just from the cold, but from the certainty that no one was coming. They said she stole bread, a single loaf, stale at the edges, hard enough to crack a tooth, the kind the baker threw to dogs when business was good. But hunger doesn't care about law, and neither did the men who dragged her here. Her name didn't matter to them anymore. Once she was called a thief, she became something smaller than human. The rope hung above her head, swaying slightly with the draft from the open rafters, its shadow brushing her cheek like a finger already claiming her. The priest's voice trembled as he read from the book, not with faith but with fear of the crowd behind him, men and women who whispered righteousness while secretly relieved it wasn't them kneeling there. She hadn't cried. Tears waste water, and she'd learned long ago you don't waste what keeps you alive. Her dress, once green, was now dulled with grime, torn at the hem, blood darkening one knee where she'd been shoved down. Outside, a horse snorted. Boots crunched fast through snow. Then bang! The doors flew open so hard the iron hinges screamed. Snow exploding into the church like a living thing, white and wild. He stood there framed by the storm. Tall, broad, coat heavy with frost, beard dark with ice, eyes burning with something older than anger. A widowed rancher, they would remember later. A man who'd buried his wife with his own hands and hadn't spoken much since. He didn't shout. He didn't pray. He walked straight down the aisle, ignoring the gasps, the priest's shaking hand, the murmurs turning sharp with panic. When the men tried to stop him, he shrugged them off like flies. He climbed the platform, knife already in his hand, and before anyone could speak, the blade flashed. The rope snapped. She collapsed forward, coughing, breath tearing back into her lungs like it had been stolen. He caught her before she hit the floor. Up close, she smelled horse, leather, smoke, and bread. He untied her wrists, took off his coat, wrapped it around her shaking shoulders. And then he did something no one expected. He reached into his satchel, pulled out a loaf of bread, broke it in half, pressed it into her hands and said, quiet but clear enough to echo through the church, eat first. No, someone ever spoken in that building carried more power than those two words. And as she took her first bite, hands trembling, the room changed. Fear turned to shame. Judgment turned to silence. And the man who'd cut the rope turned slowly to face them all, eyes hard as winter, daring anyone to argue with mercy. They never apologized. Not out loud, not properly. But silence has its own language. And the way they stepped aside as he led her out into the storm said enough. The snow had softened, falling slower now, like the sky itself was exhausted from watching humans do what they do best. He lifted her onto his horse without asking her name, because names can wait and survival cannot. She clutched the bread to her chest like it was sacred, chewing slowly, deliberately, every bite a reminder that she was still alive, that warmth could return, that death had missed her by inches. His ranch sat miles beyond town, isolated, weather-beaten, honest. He set her down by the fire, poured her soup, and turned his back while she ate. A quiet respect that broke something open inside her. Over days, then weeks, she learned his silence wasn't emptiness. It was grief, deep and careful. The kind that makes room for others because it knows how fragile life is. She helped where she could, cooked, cleaned, worked. And at night, when the wind howled like it did in the church, she slept without rope shadows above her head. The town whispered again, of course. They always do. But this time, the whispers couldn't cross the fence. Spring came slow, as if unsure it was welcome, but it came all the same. Flowers broke through frost. Laughter, too. The rancher smiled once, just barely, when he saw her teaching a foal to trust a gentle hand. He never asked why she stole the bread. He already knew the answer. Hunger, desperation, love for life. Months later, when the town faced famine of its own, they came, not to judge, but to ask. And it was her who stepped forward, bread in her arms, eyes steady. and said the same words that saved her life. Eat first. Mercy spread faster than cruelty ever had. And the rope? It rotted in the church rafters, forgotten, useless, while the woman once left to hang stood tall, alive because one man chose compassion over law. If this story moved, if you believe kindness can still cut through cruelty, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because these are the stories that matter, the ones that remind us that sometimes saving a life starts with a single choice and a single piece of bread.